Well, good evening. My name is Hassani, and I am pleasured to be co-hosting with the illustrious Lakeisha Hines. How you doing, Lakeisha?
I am well. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Hassani, how are you today, sir?
I am doing phenomenal, and all of you are tuned in to Ask the Experts every night. We come on here Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to answer your questions. I hope that you guys got them. We want to jump right into them. Nina's got a question. We're going to go straight to it. Nina from Detroit. My question is: what techniques are useful to help my husband feel safe to talk when I say I am cool as a cucumber? I am, but I feel that no matter how I ask, he's on the defense.
Wow. You are saying you are cool as a cucumber. He may not feel that way though. I'm curious to know why he's on the defense. I mean, people naturally don't just get on the defense for no reason. So has there been bad, poor communication in the past? Has there
Right.
been issues with you guys
Mhm.
having communication previously and now you're doing better with communication and he still hasn't made that transition yet, or you haven't been consistent enough with showing up cool as a cucumber? So I don't know. I just don't think people just automatically get on the defense. So what's happened before?
When a person's on the defense, it means they're defending themselves against. So that implies that he may feel attacked by something you're saying or the way in which you're saying it. If you say, "Hey,
Mhm.
I'm cool as a cucumber," versus, it's all about tone, right? It's all about
Yep.
delivery. So if if
Body
if you say,
language.
"How you doing, babe? I'm fine." You sure? I'm fine. It just depends on how you're showing up. And so I think that's a great point, Lakeisha, in terms of that, because why would he be defended or defensive?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Very good.
Um,
That's the first question. What are your questions, folks? What are your questions? While you're thinking of these questions, we always give you some grace to ask those questions. I just want to reinforce that Saturday we had our Overcoming Emotional Triggers class. It was a phenomenal class. We had about 100 people in there, and they really got some techniques and some know how in order to overcome the struggles that they're having with their memories and things that they're triggered by in society. Sometimes they're experiencing internal triggers and they learn how to overcome those things. Also, this week, guys, Foundry is here. So you also have time to register. The link is in the description. We hope that you take a part of that. And also in March, we have our last chance weekend, March 11th through the 13th. We're looking forward to those couples who have registered, and there is room for more. All
yes.
right. So, still no questions. And Lakeisha, you know what that means. Oh,
I
here,
know we're
see,
ending early.
I know. Saved by the Bell. Sean has a question. Here we go. Triggers feel so real. How do you manage panic attacks? Even if things are going well, they seem to take control of me. And all strategies I've learned seem so far away. And all strategies I've learned seem so far away. So, panic attacks, that's the question.
Yeah, I'm not clear on the that last part. Strategies they've learned seem so far away. Do you mean like the strategies that you previously learned are not working for you anymore? And then did you have panic attacks before you started having these triggers and now maybe you got control of the panic attacks, and since something happened, I'm assuming it's infidelity, but it could have been anything. Something happened, now you have triggers and now your panic attacks are back. I'm not sure. But when you are having panic attacks, I mean, honestly, you know that you have to, depending on what's going on with you, you know, you have to stop, you have to breathe, you really have to focus on managing your breathing, your surroundings, and really just again trying to identify. I'm all in the prevention box, so trying to identify what's causing them in the first place so that you can put a plan in place to prevent you from going there. But once you get there, I know breathing is extremely important, and I also know that you have to shift your thinking and you have to picture something that is calming and relaxing for you. so that you can begin to get that visualization in your mind of something that will bring you peace. For me, it's the beach. I don't know what it is for you, but you've got to visualize something else that's going to calm you down. I have so many questions, Sean. I want to know again. You've gotten strategies. Where'd you get these strategies from? Were you in therapy before? Again, I also want to know, were you having panic attacks before you were being triggered? So, sometimes you do have to go back to what you originally learned, but sometimes when there's something new that's causing you to have panic attacks, then you do have to try some new strategies. So I'd be curious to know what you've already been doing or what you were taught before. um yeah, I have a lot of questions.
Well, I think, regardless of what she may say to respond to your questions, I think you hit it dead on, right? Everything that you just articulated is exactly what is considered typical for a person to do, right? So the deep breathing is significantly important because it slows your heart rate down and it allows you to get composure. Recognizing that you're having that panic attack, just being self aware is important. You said focus on something. You can focus on something two ways: by actually looking around and zoning in on something and locking eyes with that particular thing, or closing your eyes, right? Because when you close your eyes, about 60-70% of your sensory
Mm-hmm.
knowledge is shut down. So now I'm not reacting to the outside external world. I'm able to find some peace. Now I'm thinking about that ocean, just like you said, right? And what that really is practicing mindfulness, right? That's what
Mm-hmm.
that is. And then you may be tense and stressed, so you have to learn how to practice, muscle relaxation techniques, just to allow the stress to be released and to have a peace, not just in your mind, but in your body. And then, another thing you can do: lavender. Keep lavender around. Lavender is a
So good.
calming scent that really has an impact on how you just move and breathe. And then the last thing is, there should be like a mantra that you're internally repeating again and again and again. And that mantra, whatever it is, what you can make it up, whatever you want it to be, whatever calms you down and gets you back to that place is what you should do. Now, you're going to have panic attacks again because you're speaking to the fact that you've had them and you want to know a technique. So I would re-listen to this video, take notes, right, and get in a rhythm and a routine of doing it. And all these techniques you should do prior to the panic attack, because the more you do it, repetition is the mother of all learning, the more natural it becomes. If you wait till a panic attack occurs, what were those steps again? And you're trying to figure it out and you miss it, and now you become overwhelmed. So
Oh,
does that make sense?
that's
So
good. Yeah, that's really good. Sean is saying it's like I forget what to do. That's that. I don't know if Sean is a male or female, but Sean is saying
female.
it's like I forget what to do in the moment. Um, and so again, I'm just wondering, how often are you practicing this, right? It should be like breathing to you. It should be something that you do over and over. I love what you said about the mantra or whatever it is that they're repeating. Because if you do that over and over again, like make that a practice every day. Do it outside of your panic attack experience so that it does become something that is just that you naturally do. So I think you have to work on these techniques outside of the panic attack so that when it does happen, again, it's like breathing. It's something that will naturally happen and it'll come to you. You won't have to worry about remembering what you need to do because you're already doing it. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
that makes a lot of sense. Let's go to another question. Veronica asks, can you be fully healed from adultery, lies, mistrust, hurtful words, etc., or will you always have triggers from having had gone through adultery, lies, manipulation, etc.? You know what? I think this is a perfect setup for you. Why don't you dig into that?
Set up for me. Absolutely, you can be fully healed. I firmly believe, the everything starts in the mind. And if you tell yourself that you can be healed, you will be. You have to speak those things as if they already exist. So, again, everything starts with your mind. If you tell yourself that you can be healed, you can recover from this, you do the work. Obviously, you have to do the work. You absolutely can be healed from it. It is a process. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but you definitely have to show up and be willing to do the work. And one of the things that we've been talking about lately is regardless of how your partner or spouse shows up. you still have a responsibility to yourself to make sure that you do your work, to make sure that you're as healthy and as whole as humanly possible. You're not putting your hope, your faith, your trust in the person, you're putting it in the process. And if you do believe in a higher power, then you're putting it in that higher power. But it's really not initially you're putting your hope, faith, and trust in them. You literally are just focused on managing your own triggers, and you're looking for signs that this person can be trusting. I mean, you would do that with anyone. If you were starting a new relationship, a new friendship, or whatever, you would want that person to show you certain things so that you could feel comfortable. But ultimately, you have to be open and willing to receive whatever it is that they have to offer. So it starts with you. Everything begins with you. Everything starts with your mindset and your mentality, and just making sure that you are open to the possibility that yes, I can recover from this. If you tell yourself that you won't, guess what? You won't.
Very true. What listen, whatever you believe, and we've said this 1,000 times, whatever you believe, you're right. So if you believe that you can fully heal from an adulterous situation, you're right. If you believe that you can't, you are right. And so the question is, what do you choose to believe? I'd rather
Mhm.
believe something that has a positive outcome than
Right.
something that will keep me trapped in a negative space. Like, who wants to hold on to the pain and the bitterness and the resentment and the unwillingness or inability to trust and to forgive? Who
Yeah.
wants that? Like,
Yeah.
you want to be able to release all of the residue of that
Mhm.
past horrible event and plot a path into a new successful future with peace, love, and joy and harmony. Listen, guys, this week in the mornings on the Couples Academy show, we're talking about the 4 seasons of marriage. And just
Mhm.
like in the earth, we have 4 seasons: summer, winter, spring, and fall. In your marriage, you have seasons as well. And
Mhm.
if you find yourself in a dark season, right, you're in your fall or winter season, there's a way that you can thrust yourself into spring. But it's not
Yes.
just going to happen. It's not like in the earth, well, I'm going to just wait it out because I know in about 3 more weeks, spring is coming. No, 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 no. You are responsible for the season that you're in. And so, yes, storms may come, rain may come, and you have nothing to do with that, but you have everything to do with the season that you choose to remain in. So, if this represents a dark space where there's mistrust, hurt, manipulation, and adultery, and you're in darkness, you should be fighting for your life to get out of that darkness into the glorious light, right? And that's
But
that
you
happy season.
but think about it too. Like when we're working with couples, typically, when do they move forward? When do we see them propel forward and get to the next level? It's when they both get in alignment. It's when they both make up their minds that I'm sick of this and I don't want to stay here anymore. I don't want to be in this dark place anymore. So once they make up their minds that this is enough, I'm done, I don't want to suffer anymore, that's when we truly begin to see them blossom and grow. And this question from Veronica asking, can you be fully healed? That makes me feel like you're questioning whether or not it's possible. And so if you're asking, is that the case? Then you're doubting and you're thinking that it's, man, this may not be possible. And you mentioned storms, Hassani. The storms do not come to break us, they come to make us. That's the truth.
Mm.
So what do you
Mm.
want to come out of whatever this storm that you're in? Do you want to stay in this storm? Or are you ready to, as you said, get out of this fall or winter
Yeah,
season and get into spring? I don't know about you. I want to be in spring.
I know
Actually, I
that's right.
like summer, but you know,
It's interesting to your point. Adversity is not meant to make you bitter, but better,
better.
right? And
Absolutely.
so it really tests what you're made of and what's on the inside of you. So
Mhm.
excellent, excellent point. Here's another question from Cali Power Couple. Can you elaborate a bit on how the betrayed partner forgiving the unfaithful partner is for themselves? That's a very, very good question because we've heard that time and time again. The point is, if I'm holding resentment, animosity, bitterness, frustration, rage, whatever it is, whatever that negative emotion is, towards the spouse. Well, where am I holding on to these negative thoughts and feelings? Within my case, within my
Yes.
physical body. So those negative thoughts and feelings are doing me harm, right? It's creating stress in the body, it's creating sickness and disease. Now, it's so interesting. Listen, There's a phenomenal book, and I've shared this with you in particular, and I've shared it with many people over the years. There's a book called How to Heal Your Life by Dr. Lewis Hay. And in this book, she says that 95% of the sicknesses and diseases that we have is a result of two things. Number one, what we put in our mouth, and number two, what we harbor in our hearts. And so in the book, it will list every physical ailment, disease that a human being can have. And it gives a corresponding emotion attached to that physical ailment. And so, for instance, in particular, when you look up the word, when you look up cancer, right, and you look at the corresponding emotion attached to it, it's unforgiveness. So,
Yes.
literally, an
Yes.
intangible feeling can take on physical form and
Yes.
becomes touchable, tangible, concrete, and real in your life, and can create sickness and disease, which will ultimately take you out. So forgiveness is for you because it's a cleansing process that you go through for your own better good. Does that make sense?
Man, it's a weight lifted, is what it is. You're carrying around this 50-pound weight. And when you forgive, it's like you dropping that weight and moving forward. Can I just expound on that a little bit, Hassani?
Please.
Um, Sean said, I usually tell myself it could be worse and it calms me down. And Sean is referring to the panic attacks and the triggers, right? But to me, this is relevant for not only Sean, but for others that are out there as well. If you tell yours, I understand this was a strategy for you. And I understand that this is something that we do. A lot of people who are faith-based, they're always trying to look for the silver lining and look for the positive in the situation. Oh, it could be so much worse, or this person is dealing with that could be my situation. But honestly, because you're suffering from panic attacks and triggers, you telling yourself it could be worse subconsciously, you're putting that fear in your mind that it could be worse, which means that okay, this is bad right now, but it could be, like, you're literally subconsciously, psychologically embedding that in your mind that it could be worse. And which to me is only continuing the possibility of you having more and more panic attacks because you're embedding that in your brain. So instead of saying it could be worse, you're tell yourself, I can't handle this. I can't get through this. And again, you're shifting that focus and you're visualizing and focusing on something else.
You took the words right out of my cranium. I was thinking that. I said, "Oh, I'll let that go." But I'm glad you came back and reinforced that point. You have to really be careful with the choice words because your
Yes.
subconscious records them as fact. So, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, let's just say I have a desire to be debt free, right? I have to be careful not to use the word debt in my affirmation because subconscious mind can't interpret words. Such conscious mind just records and then acts out. So I keep
Yeah.
saying debt, 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 debt. Well, guess what? Subconscious says, okay, I'm gonna give you what you want, debt. It would be
Right.
better to say, I want to be not even want, I am financially free. Right? You
Mm.
see the difference between debt
Mm.
free and financially free?
Yes.
Well, it takes on a different disposition and posture. You never even want to say, I want, because
Yep.
to imply that I want means that you're lacking something, and your confessions and your mantras should not be future tense but present tense.
Present
See,
tense. That's right.
we should do a lesson just on that
We
because I think,
should.
yeah, I think if people really understood the power of their words, that if
Yes.
God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, rested on the seventh, and He created you to be creators, someone once said that we are speaking spirits, right?
Right.
We're made in His image and likeness. We are spirit, and we have the ability to speak. And when we speak, we create. And if every
Yep.
word spoken became a reality, what would you be saying? If every word you spoke
Whoa.
manifested and boom, instantly became a reality, a lot of you would be miserable because you
Yes.
don't want what you say. A lot of
Right.
you are using vain words. You're
Yeah.
saying stuff out of frustration, but you're
And
creating.
emotion. And
Yeah.
emotion. Yeah.
And every word you speak is a prayer. Just because you don't
Mm.
attach in Jesus' name to it doesn't mean that it's not a
Wow.
prayer spoken.
No, say that again. Say it one more time.
Every word you
Every
speak is a
word.
prayer. And just because you don't attach in Jesus' name to it doesn't
Phew.
mean that you're not creating with your words. And your words are a manifestation of your thoughts. So you're thinking, fine, I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to think it. Okay, well, guess what? There's a world that lives within you. See, you
Mhm.
live in a world, but there's a world that
Mm.
lives within you. And so if you're having internal dialogue and you're
Yep.
thinking things and vibrating on a low vibrational frequency, and now all you are is doubt, fear, insecurity, bitterness, you begin to draw outside situations and circumstances into your life that resonates with the internal negative feeling that you have. And so you remain
Mhm.
trapped in pain, we're trapped in all of the misery because of your thought life and because of your spoken word.
All
That's okay. I'm
right.
gonna pat myself on the back for that because somebody
I'm
needed
over here
to
like
hear.
microphone drop.
Oh,
I don't have the bomb. Like you have to bomb yourself.
okay, so hopefully that answered the question. We have another question. Hassan, I'm sorry. Hello, great team. 6.5 years after infidelity, I am the male betrayer. We attended marriage counseling for 1.5 years approximately. Awesome. Recently, my wife decided to give up on the marriage. So
Mm.
confused. Wow, wow, wow.
Man, FE, so sorry to hear that. I'm saying FE fee, I don't know. So sorry to hear that. This is the reality. A lot of times people just can't move past the betrayal. Like it's the truth. They just cannot handle it. And for those who are out there still pressing, moving forward, it's tough. It's hard. This is not for the faint. This is not for the weak. I'm telling you, it is. From what I have learned, it is easier to walk away, leave the situation than to stay and fight and do the work. And we all have a decision that we have to make every day as married couples, that we're going, whether there's infidelity or not, you have to make a decision every single day that
Mhm.
I'm going to show up and be my best self. When there is a betrayal, you have 2 times more work to do, because now you're trying to rebuild and reestablish trust. And I mean, there's so much work involved with marriage in general, but definitely when there's a betrayal, there's 2 times more work, I think, to do. And so everybody can't handle this. Everybody's not willing to show up and do the work. So it may not be anything that you did or did not do. It literally it may be that your spouse decided this is too much, and I can't handle this, or I'm not willing to do what it takes to get this back on track.
Excellent answer. Here's the next question from Janice. My mother in law is a trigger for me. She knew everything that was going on. How should a trigger be handled when it's someone that you can't remove from your life? Great question. So, in our master class on Saturday, we talked about how to untrigger your partner who's in your life forever, right? So a part of that lies in his or her responsibility in how they show up and what they need to do to create a safe environment for you and how to help you heal. But then you have a role to play too of untriggering your spouse. And so
Mhm.
what one of the steps, like for instance regarding your mother-in-law, I don't know what your approach has been. I don't know if you've sat down and had conversation with her and shared with her what's on your heart and mind and released it. Some of us are bottling things up and in, and all of a sudden it's just like it's boiling on the inside. And every time I look, I'm just frustrated and I'm mad or I'm sad. You have to be, that's why we say communication is the most important skill that you can
Yeah.
develop when you're in this process of healing, because it's going to be a lot of conversations you're going to either have with yourself. That's what journaling is for, getting it out, releasing it, or conversations you're going to have with an offender or a party of the offended, so I would say take that step if you haven't already, because healing can come therapeutically when you release and you're able to gain clarity
Mhm.
for situations. And then the other question would be, okay, so she knew all along. Well, how do you know what her conversations were like with her son?
Right.
I mean, so maybe there are assumptions that are being made, and you don't know the full story. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe she doesn't know all that you think she knows. But there's just a lot going on here, right? So
Mhm.
to me, you need to have a conversation with her if she's your trigger.
Mhm. But you
Okay.
handle the triggers from her the same way you do your spouse, because you can't remove him from your life either. So to me, there's no difference that it's your spouse or it's your mother, or both of them are in your life. As long as your spouse is in your life, the mother-in-law is going to be in your life. So you would handle it the same way. But definitely I agree. You got to have a conversation, because
Here's a
when
question.
you don't, you make up stuff in your mind. So you got to have the conversation.
Very true. We got 5 minutes, so we want to give some quick answers to these
Ooh,
great questions. What must be done in order to rebuild trust after infidelity when your spouse reaches out via text to the website where he contacted the person from with whom the infidelity occurred? Well, the first step is to stop reaching out to that website. That's how you build trust. You don't continue to go back to the.
right.
To, it's just like reminds me of what was that movie back in the day, New Jack City, right? So Pookie, he was on crack, and then he got removed from it, he got sober again, and where did he want to
Yep.
go? Right back into the crack house, because he thought he
Mm-hmm.
was strong enough, and he wanted to help all the other people out of their situation, and he got caught up in what ultimately died. So you've got to completely remove yourself from the things that were attached to the affair. That's just an easy alley oop
Right.
question and slam dunk answer. What do you want to add to that?
Nothing. That's it. Leave that website alone.
Yeah, and then transparency in all of the areas of your life. If you are closed and live in a compartmentalized life and giving your spouse pieces and parts of your life and not all of it, it's going to breed mistrust and doubt and
Yes.
skepticism. Okay, here's another question. How long is too long to not trust? D Day was November 2021, and I still check the phone, email, and I can't let the phone ring more than 3 times for fear that I'm coming in second again. Wow. Listen, November 2021, we're talking
Mm-hmm.
4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, listen, the Bible says in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that there's a time and a season for everything under the sun. There's a time to
Mm-hmm.
be born and a time to die, a time to love and a time to hate, a time to dance and a time to mourn. There's a time and a season of mourning.
Yeah.
And if you don't take the appropriate time to properly mourn, what you're going to do is suppress, move on. And what's happening is all you're going to do is set yourself up for a later release of
Yep.
that same hurt and pain when you could have taken the time now to deal with it effectively. You say, Lakeisha.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you lose a loved one, and people on the outside have a tendency to tell you that you should only grieve. Or you're still, wow, you're not over there yet. You're still grieving. It's been 2 years or whatever. Nobody can tell you how long you need to go through your grieving process. Nobody can give you a number to say, but I will say this is still very new. This is very fresh. It's very raw, and you have to allow yourself to deal with those emotions. When there is a betrayal, it does feel like a death. It's a death of the vision that you had, or the idea that you had about your marriage and your relationship. So there is a death that takes place, and so there will be a grieving process and a healing process, and you have to allow yourself to go through it. Because just like you said, Hassani, if you suppress it, push it down, or whatever the case may be, it will come back up, and you won't be able to control how or when it comes back up and who gets hurt in the process.
And what I will say is this: we say it all the time: trust is lost in buckets and gained in drops. So it's not going to be restored overnight. It will come through your spouse's uh, pattern of consistency in doing the right thing, and your
Hmm.
willingness to open up your heart and mind to believe again. Okay, it's a
And my
two-way
question
street.
is, why do you still feel the need to check the phone, the email, and again, it's still very early, but after a certain point that should go away. But that has to do with your spouse and how they're showing up. And that's exactly what Hassan is talking about.
And that leads to this great follow-up question by someone else, Faye. I think, how do I show up and be present in the marriage as the male betrayer? I've asked my wife several times, what can I do to show up? And she responds with, figure it out.
Mm,
You I'm sorry, figure it out. So
figure
confused.
it out.
So what I would say is she's absolutely wrong and she's absolutely right. Right? She's both. So number one, you should be doing whatever it takes to figure it out. One thing I know is that typically the betrayed spouse becomes the student of all things infidelity.
Right.
Whereas the unfaithful spouse doesn't have the motivation and the drive and the willingness to become a student of infidelity. When I mean that, I mean the recovery process goes along with that. So, yes, you should be researching, you should be reading books, you should be reading articles, you should be tuning in, taking notes on what we say. Figure it out.
Hmm.
But also, a part of figuring that out is hearing from the very one who you have hurt. So it seems
Yep.
like she's closed down and
Yeah.
she's in a space where she's resistant.
Right.
So until she begins to open up, figure it out until she gives you her portion of what you need to know and do to help her heal.
Mhm. Agreed. She sounds like she's still either really, really hurt or angry or a combination of the two. And that's why she's responding to you that way. Make the
Absolutely.
effort. Just start doing the work.
Absolutely. All right, couple more. Thank you for
Hey,
speaking on the
Lindsay.
power. Hey, Lindsay, for speaking on the power of our words and the things that we think. The mindfulness part of the trigger class is what hit me the hardest. Oh, you
Yes.
was in the class? Awesome.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Then we have thank you, Hassani. Makes perfect sense. I battled cancer twice, and I do struggle with unforgiveness in our recovery
Mm.
process. I
Mm-hmm.
often feel that I've been thrown a
Been
hot
throwing a
potato.
hot
LOL.
potato.
Listening.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And so it's deep because you battle cancer twice, and it's
Twice.
a direct, not to say that that's the root cause of the cancer that you've
Mm-hmm.
experienced, but that is a manifestation of
Yes.
unforgiveness.
Yes.
So let there not be a third round. Release the emotional toxicity so it doesn't metastasize into sickness and disease. Lindsay says, my husband isn't willing to communicate much. Do you think that journaling the conversations I wish to have and imagining positive responses would be helpful? You,
Yes. How
you know what it
powerful
is.
is that? How powerful is that? Absolutely, Lindsay. Please do that. And I hope other people are taking note of that because that is so powerful. Absolutely, yes. And continue to hold on to the faith and the hope that he will come around and he will begin to communicate. I know your situation, and so you just have to continue believing that he will come around and begin to communicate because you need that and he needs that.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. And Lindsay, maybe one thing you can attempt to do is try to figure out why he's so resistant to communicating. Is it, Danielle, we were just in our moving forward meeting tonight, and she was talking to an individual who's resistant to communicating, and his personality style causes him to be evasive. He tries to avoid certain things because it's built into his wiring. Not to say that that's who he's always going to be. He has the ability of becoming something different, but understanding the why of his
Mm-hmm.
resistance to communicate will really help, because if we could tap into his motivation, it may open him up to be able to communicate a little bit more. I have one more question, Lakeisha, through text. It is, when my husband had an affair, we broke up, and I eventually started healing and finding myself again. How do you handle feeling like you are losing yourself now that you are working on the marriage for 8 months? Wow, that's a great question. So I separate, I find my voice, I find my freedom. Now we come back together, we're working on the relationship, and I lose my own identity again. I'll jump in, then you can weigh in because I know your answer is going to be more profound than mine. So this is what I would say. Um, you can forget affair. In a marriage, you're
Mm-hmm.
taking on a new identity, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's team we instead of team me. And in that process, there's a dying that occurs. The Bible says in Genesis that when a covenant is established, there must be the death of the ones who are involved in the covenant. So there's a part of you that dies, that should die. But then there's a part of you that makes that partnership so unique and so powerful that should not die. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to come back together to work on the marriage, it may mean that you're changing the dynamics of the relationship, which is different than the marriage. Marriage is
Mm-hmm.
partnership, duties, responsibilities, obligations. Relationship is our connection to one another. And maybe, what happens is when a person's been cheated on, they have a new lease for life, they get their voice back. But sometimes when we go back into the same old relational dynamic, we lose
Mm-hmm.
it. You have to create a new culture for your relationship so that you don't lose your sense of self, but more of you comes out, which adds to the overall connection that you have in that relationship. What would you say to that, Lakeisha?
Agree. I love doing strengths and weakness assessments. I love doing that because where you are extremely strong and maybe your spouse is weak, those are the areas where you shine and vice versa. So you guys just understanding what you both bring to the table, I think is critically important because you want to be able to play on each other's strengths. You want to be able to provide different viewpoints and different mindsets, and maintaining your individualism can still happen, but there still has to be balance. right? You can be off making decisions by yourself and not considering your husband. But if there is something that you did, maybe you took up a new hobby or whatever while you were out living your best life, well, you want to continue that hobby, but you just have to make sure it's balanced. Like you can't allow that hobby to prevent you from doing the things that you need to do within the home. So you do need to still maintain those things that bring you joy and make you happy, but also making sure that you're balanced and supporting your husband and giving him what he needs as well, and vice versa.
Absolutely. Phenomenal answer. Listen, guys, you've been watching Ask the Experts. I hope that you got something incredible out of this situation in this last 30 minutes that you can apply to your life. What good is hearing information if you do nothing with it? Knowledge is not power, but the application of knowledge is power. I'm talking to you right now. I'm talking to you. Who is he talking? I'm talking to you.
You.
You need to register for the Last Chance Weekend. If you know that you're in a place that you can't get out of on your own, stop taste testing. Stop taste testing. What are you doing? This is just a
Mhm.
taste test. And we're
Yep.
giving you everything we have in 30 minutes to help you in your situation, but you know you need more. So, what are you waiting for? Get out of your own way. Stop making excuses and justifications for why you can't. Because guess what? Maybe if you continue to make excuses, that'll be the course of the rest of your life. And then you'll die with regrets, not having what you
Mm.
potentially could have because you allowed your negative thinking to get in the way. Look beyond your circumstances and your situation. See a future that doesn't currently exist in your present and allow yourself to go through a process that can help change and transform your life and your marriage. I'm talking about the Last Chance Weekend. We're going to end this session with a quick description of that, and that will conclude our session. But until then, we'll see you tonight. Have a great day, a great night. We
In the
love you.
morning. See you in the morning.
See you in the morning. Let's get it, guys.